In coding, the ultimate goal is to achieve a desired end result. And that desired end result, more often than not, has to look a specific way. As an example, we may end up having to do what I was describing earlier as far as combining values together in order to be able to present an output. Now, what I want to do is I want to dive into a concept called formatting strings. And we've already kind of loosely worked with this idea of formatting, but what I want to do is I want to talk about the old school way. Now, this is the way we've already done things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these three variables right here. So I've got the version of an operating system, the number of devices, and I've got the cost. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste this field in here. Now we can see here that this cost, this value that we're using as cost right here, does not have, it doesn't come out like money. So it's not like $1,000 or $1,000.33. It's 333. So it's basically the wrong format. Now the other thing too is a lot of times I may want to actually present information such as being able to say, well, let's say, we'll say result. That's not a variable or not a function. So I'll go ahead and say result equals, and we'll type exactly what it has here. So we'll say version is, and then what I want to do is I want to add the version as a variable. But the problem is we know that we can't do that. Why? Because it's not a float. The system knows it's a float, but it would be a float because it's going to be a decimal value. So what I can do is I could actually cast this as a string. And that's going to, let's see, version, full concatenation, what did I do here? Result equals, oh, did it wrong. I'm sorry, I'm used to the shorter being the variable, so version. So basically cast version as a string, and now result should actually give me something that I want. I could also come in here and do the exact same thing. I could say that we'll say total, or we'll say total underscore price. We'll use the snake method equals, and then over here I'm going to say we'll say quantity times cost. Hey, it works. So let's say total price. We'll hit enter, and it's $4,001 and $3,332. Well, that's not what we want. Now we already know that I could actually round. So I could come over here and I could say round, and let's say total price, comma, 2. Let's give that a try. So hey, it rounded. So that's one way to do it. And that's actually the old way of doing things. There is a new way in version 3, and it's called an f-string literal. And it actually works really cool. And you'll notice how it begins here with the idea of f. Now, what I could do is I could come over and say that, let's say version, not version, we said it was result. So result equals, and I'm going to tell the system I'm going to use an f-string literal. So that's what that little f stands for. And I'm going to say the version is, and then I'm not really going to worry too much about anything other than the format that I'm going to use. So I'm going to use the curly bracket, and I'm going to say version. I'm not going to have to cast it. I'm not going to have to make any modifications or changes to it. And then all I'm going to do is just go ahead and end my single quote. Notice it works perfectly fine. If I say result, didn't have to cast it, didn't have to make any changes. Now this is only introduced in version 3.5. And it's one of the reasons that I made the decision to switch my class over to version 3 from version 2, because this is just so stinking handy to be able to use. Now, also we have that idea. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to take this guy right here. I'll copy it out. And we'll say total underscore cost equals, and I'll paste that in. Now, in this scenario, if I do total cost, I still have that funky number. Well, one of the things that I can do here is I can actually engage an internal f-string literal value here. And what I'll do is I'll go over and say cost. And what I want to do is I want to actually go and change the format to where I'm going to only look at 2 digits past the decimal for this idea of rounding. So let's see if that actually does what I want it to do. Total underscore cost. And sure enough, it placed the proper value in there. Now, this replaced what used to be referred to or is referred to as the legacy method for being able to format values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab all of this, just copy it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it all in here. And we're going to look at exactly what happens here. So in the scenario, the way things used to be, what I would do is I would actually create a spaceholder variable using an open curly bracket. And then what I would actually do is I would say in that curly Q, I want to place the quantity times the cost in the dictated format. So in this scenario, if I come over and we look at, I'll just grab this first one because it's getting kind of confusing on the screen. I'll just copy. And let's get some maneuvering room down here. I'll paste this in. And we see exactly what I have here. This cost us, and the bracket is the placeholder, and we're going to insert the format of the result of quantity times cost. If we take a look at the next value here, that doesn't work well for me because I want to see the rounding. Well, all I'm going to do is I'm going to say over here, I'll just say that in the placeholder, where I'm going to place the result of the format modification, I want to look at the idea of going out 2 digits from the decimal point and change the format. So if I come over here and copy that and then paste it in, give us some maneuvering room, paste. What we're going to see here is it did indeed look at those values for me. Now, if I wanted to look at it another way, so we have this other value here that's saying the cost of the space holder and the total price was, and we have a new space holder. Well, what I'm doing is I'm introducing a format here to where the first value is going to be inserted in this bracket, the second value is going to be inserted in the second bracket. Now, this is going to be if I do things in line and everything marries up perfectly fine. So let's grab this, take some maneuvering room, paste it in, and what we're going to see here is exactly what I said. The two values, quantity, there's 4, it's right there, and the cost times the quantity is going to be this value right here. And again, I may want to actually manipulate this, so I could come over here and do exactly what I did before and say, starting from the beginning, let's say .2f. Let's see if that actually gives me the correct result as far as the money, which it did. So the next value here is I want to talk about the fact that this guy right here is 0, just like in the index count. So the very, very first value in the format operation will be 0. This guy will be 1. To illustrate that, I'm going to tell it where I want the information placed. So in that first placeholder, let me get on here, sorry. On that first placeholder, I'm going to place 0. And this is just to indicate the operations. So there we are. I've got, in this instance, I've got 1,333, and I've got 40433. So something's not right there. Oh yeah, it is. It's cost and quantity, cost. So that is correct. So that's the cost, and this is the total. However, again, I may want to modify it to where it looks more like money. So how do I do that? Well, with these zeros in here, let's see if it works. So I'll come over here and say .2f. And over here I'll say .2f. Actually, yeah, .2f here too. And like I said, this is the legacy method of being able to implement the changes. And just to indicate that these zeros and ones count, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change them. I'm going to use 0 over here in the second one, and I'll use 1 over here in the first one, and you'll see that that's going to reverse the values. So this manipulation and this being able to format data formatting means the world to us as network engineers. So a lot of times we'll get the information in one format and we'll need to actually manipulate that format and be able to do what we want to do with our script. So this is definitely worth playing with. I recommend that you look at the casting method. I also recommend that you look at the f-string literals, as well as looking at the legacy method. Most scripts today that I'm seeing are coming out of 2.4, and they still use the legacy method, whereby you're going to create the little curly cues to act as the space holders, and then you use the format dot and do the configuration. Actually, it's not format dot, it's going to be dot format, and head to look. And that's going to be very, very useful tools for us to be able to manipulate information. In our very first script, when it comes to actual class, where we're really interacting with the devices, we're going to do a lot of data manipulation. And it's going to require us to use these methods as far as being able to use the f-string literals and the casting. It's also going to require us to use the next module, which is going to be the idea of string methods. String methods are built-in operations inside of the data type of strings. There's going to be list methods, there's going to be dictionary methods, and we're going to need to learn how to, first of all, explore and find out what all of our options are. And in this video series and in the class, we're going to be focusing specifically on the ones that are significant to what I want us to learn and what I want us to be able to do. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope to see you guys in the next one.